Hello students, I will be your instructor for the subject local and regional governance. So the first topic of this subject is the concept and theories of governance. Okay, so before we begin, I would like to present to you these words of wisdom from the father of public administration himself, Mr. Woodrow Wilson. He said that the ear of the leader must ring with the voices of the people. So please have time to ponder on this important quote by Mr. Wilson. For today's discussion, here is the outline. So first is what is government? And then we have government and politics. We have governance, good governance, and governance theories and models. To begin, we will be discussing the heart of this particular subject. What is government? So government is an entity that exercises authority. So it is a body that exercises its will, its power towards the people. So to study government means to study the exercise of authority. So this basically involves abiding. What are the concepts? What are the things to follow in leading or in governing the people? Government is closely related to politics. Why is this so? It is because politics is one of the major pillars of government. So when we say politics, it is the art of government, exercise control through making and enforcing decisions such as laws, guidelines, memorandums, and the like. The United Nations Development Program, or the UNDP, stated that governance has three main legs or pillars. We have economic, political, and administrative. So when we say economic, it involves decision making that affects a country's economy, its processes, its relationship with other economies, and the like. So it has major implications for equality, poverty, and quality of life. So political, on the other hand, is the process of decision making in order to formulate policies, laws, and other related things that are applicable to any given situation. So on the other hand, lastly, we have administrative governance. So it is pretty much connected with political, as it is now the stage where the policy that have been formulated will be implemented. Now we turn to the concept of good governance. So what are the basic principles of good governance? First off, we have participatory. So this involves the stakeholders in the decision-making process. Next, transparent. So when we say transparent, we mean an open access is given to the people on important documents and matters of the government. And then we have accountable. Government officials and employees should be accountable and responsible in performing his or her duties as the ones representing the people. Next is effective. So it should be results-based and initiate change for the better. And lastly, equitable. So government services should be given more to those who are in need, and special privileges should not be given to some special people. There are a lot of theories and models of governance, but in this topic, we will focus on four major ones. We will start with Stoker, and we go to Minsberg, Peters, and lastly, Hedys. We begin with Stokes Model of governance. So in here, he has 5 propositions. First is that governance refers to a set of institutions and actors that occupy government bodies and beyond. So it is not just a single entity, but also involves other entities, other institutions, such as the private and other sectors. Second, governance identifies the blurring of boundaries and responsibilities for tackling social and economic issues. So by this, governance should identify clear and definite boundaries of social and economic issues in order to make appropriate actions for each. Next is that governance identifies the power dependence involved in the relationships between institutions involved in collective actions. So it means that there is an interconnectedness and relatedness of institutions. Therefore, a collective action must be done to make a difference. Next is that governance is about autonomous self-governing of networks of actors. So this basically means that governance can act on its own as representatives of the people. And lastly, governance recognizes the capacity to get things done which does not rest within the power of government to command or use its authority. So this basically means that governance does not merely focus on the power and authority given, but ensures that actions are done and are results-based. Minsberg discussed 5 major models of governance. First of which is the government as machine model. So he basically means that the government is a machine of rules and regulations and is responsible to individual initiatives. Next is the government as network model. So under this, the government is said to be an interconnected network that must work as one in order to get things done. Next is the performance control model, in which the government is pretty much like a business. It is composed of business units in which the manager is accountable with its performance. So basically, the government is performance-based. Next is the virtual government model. Under this, it is said that to better serve the people, the private sector should highly be involved. Next is the normative control model. So, it is pretty much values and norms oriented, wherein it has 5 major elements. First is selection. People are chosen by values and attitudes rather than just credentials. Next is socialization. This element ensures a membership dedicated to an integral social system. Next is guidance. Guidance is by accepted principles rather than imposed plans, by visions rather than by targets. Next is responsibility. All members share responsibility. They feel trusted and supported by leaders who practice a craft style of management and is rooted in experience. And lastly, judgment. So performance is judged by experienced people, including recipients of the service, some of whom sit on representative oversight boards. In his book, The Future of Governing, Peters presented 4 models of governance. First of which is the market model, wherein the private sector is better suited in providing the services rather than the government. Next is the participatory state model. So it emphasized individual and collective participation and action of government offices. Next is the flexible government model. So under this, the government should be flexible and take into account the environmental challenges and the needs of the people. Next is the deregulated government model. So it basically means that there is less dependence on the bureaucracy and more focus on social needs and decision making. Now, we turn to Hedys' model on governance. He emphasized that governance is a phenomenon, and it has three theoretical approaches. First of which is organizational theory. So this has focused more on the bureaucracy and that higher offices supervise lower ones. Next is the cultural theory. This has focused more on the customs, beliefs, and practices rather than practical and legal basis. And lastly, we have structural functional theory. It states that the success of political systems is based on the capacity to perform various functions. Given the discussion on the theories, concepts, and models of governance throughout this topic, we can conclude that the concept of governance is constantly evolving depending on the social, economic, political, and management issues that are present in a given time. Before this topic ends, you are to answer Activity 1, in which you are to make a storyboard on the definition of the theories and models of governance discussed in this topic. So you can either draw, illustrate, or post some pictures about the things that you have learned about governance throughout this topic. So be as creative as possible in order to get a higher mark. So good luck and God bless. If you have questions, concerns, or anything that you want to ask, you can contact me through the following. So please don't hesitate to ask, and I hope that you have learned a lot from this topic, and we'll see each other again in the future topics. Thank you and God bless everyone.